show.
Welcome to episode 49 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. If you're a new listener and you enjoy the show, we would really appreciate it if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you like the content, it would be a big time help if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. All right, everybody. It has been a little bit of a roller coaster ride for the Toronto Maple Leafs over the last couple of weeks. Their last two games included a 6-3 loss to the New York Rangers, but then they bounced back with a 3-1 victory over the New York Islanders. We are going to get into the week that was and give you our thoughts and opinions on everything that went down with this team. But before we do that, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Doing well, Anthony Bruno. Thank you for having me. For those out there who think I look a little different, I have installed a ring light, so I apologize for my disgusting pores, if you can see them even better. Episode 49. I was kind of scared to look this one up, Bruno. I'm like, is this going to be the one where no Leaf has ever worn this number, or no Leaf I've ever heard of has worn this number?
The streak could be over.
I was pleasantly surprised, Bruno. Pleasantly surprised. A player who I think gets forgotten about in Leafs history, who was a very, very good player. Number 49, Dmitry Yushkevich.
Oh, man, I love it. I love it.
Stud defenseman, the late 90s, early 2000s. For those Leafs teams that were very, very competitive. Something I forgot about was in 2002, when the Leafs made that run and lost to Carolina, Yushkevich, his season got cut short because of like this rare, dangerous blood clot disorder. And it kind of like one of those things I remember. Yeah, like we lost this like before Twitter world and whatever. Like I remember us losing Yushkevich, and it was a big deal. And yeah, he only played like 50 something games that season. And rumor has it that he really was pushing to get back on the ice for the playoffs. Like he was essentially begging the Leafs to let him play, and the doctors wouldn't let him. So shout out to Dmitry Yushkevich, man. All-star with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that all-star game too was in Toronto. So
that brings back some memories, man. Going to Leaf games in the 90s when me and my dad would buy the programs that they'd be given out on the concourse. I remember like one of the first names I saw was Dmitry Yushkevich.
Awesome.
So that name is stuck in my brain. But yeah, I love it. I love that shout out, man. Awesome. All right, man. Let's briefly go over the week that was for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Sure.
So Tuesday at Madison Square Garden in New York City, taking on the Rangers, who have kind of quietly had a really nice season. They're not getting talked about like some of the other elite teams in the league. And I don't want to call the Rangers elite, but based on their record and based on some of the star power they have on that team, that's a very, very dangerous team right now and come playoff time. But anyway, the Leafs jumped out to a 3-1 lead and, of course, found a way to blow it. The Leafs blew a 3-1 lead in 4 out of 5 games. So people were already having flashbacks to all the other nightmare moments that we have experienced as Leaf fans over the years of this team just blowing it over and over again. So they lose 6-3 to the Rangers. But then the Leafs bounce back on Saturday night against the New York Islanders with a 3-1 victory. So they go up 3-1. People were probably starting to shit themselves, but the Leafs find a way to hang on and win the game 3-1. So they finish the week 1-1, just a 2-game slate. Lepore, what are your thoughts?
Like you said, Bruno, this week was a roller coaster, or the recent times for this Leafs team has been a roller coaster. A lot to talk about, kind of dramatic, some hot takes, a coach that spoke up. Let's quickly run through the Rangers game because let's try to forget about it as soon as we can. Ilya Mikheyev scored early. He's been on absolute fire, that guy, as we've talked about before on this show. Put the Leafs up 1-0. Marner shortly after on a power play. What a pass from Willie, and what a pass And what a shot from Mitch Marner. What was the stat? It was like Marner's first power play goal in like 100 games or something. Absolutely
his first
crazy.
power play goal in 101 games.
It's like almost
just absurd.
hard.
Like, how is that even
like,
real?
How, like one of those things you say that's hard to do for a player like Mitch Marner. A little later in the period, Ryan Reeves, sniper, with his first goal of the season, comes against the Toronto Maple Leafs because, of course, to cut the lead to 2-1. Michael Bunting makes it 3-1 for the Leafs to finish out the first period, and the Leafs are looking good. But in the second, sniper Ryan Reeves scores his second goal of the season and second goal of the night versus the Toronto Maple Leafs because, of course. And then Adam Fox ties the game. What a player Adam Fox is. Slowly going into that group of one of my favorite players to watch in the National Hockey League. How aggressive he is. And it gives you this feeling. He's so aggressive. He pinches all the time, but you're never worried. You're never worried about him making a wrong decision. And again, just fantastic to watch. And it'll be great to see. Like, he's still so young. Great to see how he develops as a defenseman.
So smooth. Reigning Norris Trophy winner. Maybe he's going to go back to back potentially.
And again, man, the Olympics would have been awesome to see Adam Fox in that U.S. jersey, man. Would have been awesome. So Leafs in a game going into the third period, tied at 3. Strome midway through makes it 4-3. Kreider scored with 5 minutes to go to make it 5-3. And then the aforementioned Fox scored the empty netter to make it 6-3. Final shot count in that game was 38-27 in favor of the Leafs. And it's kind of funny. And like, this is where the stats discussions come in. So they lose this game. They blow a lead. The coach chews into them. But you look at the game after, and they outshoot their opponent, and it's a good opponent on the road by 11 shots. And the money puck numbers on this game, the Leafs would have won 67.8% of the time. So is it one of those games where the result is not quite what the game was? Or are those numbers just bullshit? And in certain cases, you can throw out the window because you can say, screw you, you blew a lead. What do you think, Bruno?
You know me, I'm a numbers guy, Lepore, just like you are, but I think the Leafs were just bad defensively in this game. And Jack Campbell, he's been struggling recently. I don't want to put it all on Jack Campbell. The Leafs obviously allowed 6 goals in this game, but defensive breakdowns, just not in the right position, making mistakes, Campbell not on his game. The Leafs didn't deserve to win this game. And one thing I should have mentioned, there was no Jake Muzzin, who was out with a concussion. So he's missed the last 2 games. And Justin Hall, who's in COVID protocol, he's also missed the last couple of games. He should be back, Justin Hall, for the next game. But, and again, they've had their rough moments this season, Muzzin and Hall. But it just goes to show, when you take those 2 guys out of the lineup who play 20 minutes a game, and you know me, I am not a huge Justin Hall fan by any means. I have ripped on Jake Muzzin a couple times this season. Yeah. But when you are replacing those minutes with Sandin and Liljegren, who I'm very high on, but when they have to go up against a physical New York Rangers team, a fast New York Rangers team with a lot of high-end players like Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin, Adam Fox on defense, and somehow, you mentioned it, Ryan Reeves, the guy hadn't scored a goal all season. I don't think I've ever seen Ryan Reeves score a goal in my life. Watching a game, watching highlights, and of course, against the Leafs, he decides to score 2 goals. I mean, he actually had,
Bissonnette took a shot on him, making fun of him, and it was his second career 2-goal game. Reeves was quick to point that out.
Unbelievable. But yeah, man, even though the Leafs outshot the Rangers, and you can look at Money Puck and maybe it says the Leafs deserve to win the game based on, 500 to 1,000 simulations or whatever it is. But I think the Leafs got outplayed and deserve to lose to the Rangers.
Yeah, I think it's that game where you jump out to a lead, like, heck, you're up 3-1 on the road and you're feeling good, but that foot just kind of comes off the gas, and you're up 2 goals, but maybe you don't really deserve it, or things just kind of gone your way early on. And there's that natural thing in certain teams that they lay off a bit. And that's how I felt about the Leafs in this game. That instinct just dropped. And maybe you can do that against weaker teams, kind of just play the game out and play the result out. But against the team like the Rangers, we'll get into how good we think they really are. And at MSG, no, you can't do that. You have to put your foot on the throat and you really have to ride the game out. And even the Leafs style, I mean, I'm not saying they were necessarily trying to play the game out that way. I think it was more of a mental thing, but they're not the team built to do that, in my opinion, anyway. And I think most people would have that opinion. So it was disappointing. And what makes it more disappointing is you could see it slipping away. You knew, you were confident that the Rangers were going to come back based on how the flow of the game was going. And that's never a good sign. It was NFL playoff weekend, and like, we'll do the reverse. So when Brady was down 27-3, he's coming back and nobody's surprised. Both the Brady lovers and the Brady haters, because of who he is and his reputation in the NFL. The Leafs, here I am as a Leaf fan, where as I was watching the game, I wasn't surprised. And that's not a good sign. It's not a good sign. And there is the take that sometimes we're too hard on the Leafs with blowing leads and kind of screwing up. And people will say, you know, other teams do the same stuff. It's just a matter of the Leafs getting all the attention all the time and people pointing fingers every time it happens. But one guy I follow actually posted, I think it was 2 and 3 goal leads blown in the last 5, 10 or 15 years. And the Leafs were actually near the top. So he said, it is real. It is real. And I mean, you going back that far, it's not necessarily just this group, but just in our lifetime, the Toronto Maple Leafs have been a team that can't hold on to leads.
Yeah. When it happens 4 times in 5 games,
yeah,
you're going to get concerned. And obviously the Leafs bounced back and hung on to a 3-1 lead against the New York Islanders on Saturday night. But when you're doing that multiple times against good teams, against playoff teams, it's a concern. It's time for a quick break for a word about MANSCAPED. Cheers to 2022 and resolutions you can actually keep. Set your first New Year's resolution with good intentions and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust MANSCAPED. Use our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use the promo code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping. Lepore, these products are the best.
They are the best, Anthony Bruno. And you mentioned New Year's resolutions. People throw things out there like, I'm going to lose weight this year. I'm going to exercise this year. Let's be honest, look in the mirror. You're not going to do those things. So why not set something realistic like keeping your balls clean? And there's no better way to do it than with the Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped.
You nailed it, Lepore. Resolutions you can actually keep. You have the Lawnmower 4.0, the body wash and shampoo. They will keep you nice and clean, smelling good, and there's nothing better than that. So once again, everybody, go to manscaped.com and use the promo code GFP20. You will get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the promo code GFP20. And the biggest talking point coming out of this game, Lepore, were the comments made by Leafs head coach Sheldon Keefe. Yes. So I will read you the comments from Keefe after the Leafs lost 6-3 to the New York Rangers. He said, "Today I thought we just played soft. We got exposed for being a team that is soft and purposeless." And that set off social media, man.
Purposeless. Think of that word. Purposeless.
He was pissed off. And, you know, we've talked about Sheldon Keefe so many times this year and comments that he's made in post-game press conferences. I remember early in the season, I ripped on him pretty hard when the Leafs were losing games and looked like shit. And he was like, "Oh, we're just taking these as learning moments," as if this team hadn't learned enough.
Yeah.
Right. So there's been moments where I've been on Sheldon Keefe, but then there's been moments where I've agreed with some of the things he said, like even when they were, you know, when they lost that game to Colorado and that the game against Vegas ended up going to a shootout. You know, he was like, "Everyone chill. Like, you know, we got 3 out of 4 points against 2 really good teams." So then he comes out and says this. He hasn't dropped a bomb like this in a while. And I got to hear your take on these comments from Sheldon Keefe.
I'll ask you this first, Bruno. I'm always quick to point to comments made by coaches in post-game scrums, both positive and negative. And I look at that one made by Keefe, and I'm not saying I think this is what it was, but I think there's a possibility. Is he not as panicked or bothered by it as he's making it seem? It's just sort of a media cover to try to get the media and fans to think that he is concerned, but deep down, he's not really that concerned. I mean, over an 82 game season, like, these things happen. And as I pointed to earlier, they seem to happen often against the Toronto Maple Leafs. But sometimes I think these coaches, they're very calculated with how they talk in the media. And I guess what I'm saying by this is what he said on the mic may not have been what he said in the room to the team. Sometimes I think we think these coaches are just kind of like these raw guys. It's like, no, the job of the coach is more strategic and X's and O's and tactics. But I don't know. I'm not saying I think that he doesn't feel that way at all, or that it was complete bullshit what he said on the mic. But there is part of me that thinks there's a chance that he's calmer in the room, that he may believe in this group. Man, let's step back for a second. For a coach to say that about his team, soft, that is a bomb in hockey.
That's like one of the worst things you can say about a hockey team.
Yeah, that team's soft. And that's why I think, and again, I'm not sitting here saying the Leafs are not soft or they are soft. I'm just saying, for him to go on the mic and say that and really mean it, that's a shot. That's a real and true shot. And then the word purposeless. Think of if your boss called you purposeless, how aggressive that is. It's devastating. And that's where I think maybe he was just trying to trick the media and fans into thinking that he's like all on them and concerned and he wants to address this, where he's maybe not. But they blew a lead. They blew a lead, and a result's a result. And how that result unfolded, people are going to feel that this team is maybe still soft, or still far too soft. And time will tell. We can have these discussions all we want, as many times as we want. We'll find out if this team is soft in the playoffs, or not soft for that matter.
So I think Keefe is definitely concerned about, the blown leads, playing soft, not being hard on the puck in close games. I think that's definitely a concern, because you go back, since Sheldon Keefe took over this team, and it hasn't been very long, back in 2019, this team has not been able to shut the door and come up big when they need to in those big moments, whether it's, especially in the playoffs, but even in some of these regular season games against these really good teams, when you get out to a 3-1 lead, you would like to comfortably win those games more often than not. And I think we've been seeing some cracks in the armor for a team that we've talked about that's been really good defensively this season. A team that over the last couple of years, for that matter, has taken a step and become a very good defensive team in the National Hockey League, as opposed to what this team used to be, where they were giving up close to 3 goals every night, and it was almost a track meet every game. So I think Keefe is definitely concerned about that. But I think another part of it is that he's just trying to motivate this team. Yeah. He's thinking, you know what? We're in the middle of the season. We still have 40 plus games to go. I'm going to try to light a fire under my team's ass right now. And yes, it's a huge bombshell to drop, to call your hockey team soft and purposeless. Yeah. But I think he was doing that to motivate this team as well. I really think he was. And look, they responded on Saturday night by getting out to a 3-1 lead and winning the game 3-1. So
solid road win. Yeah.
It was very aggressive on the part of Sheldon Keefe, but I think he did try to light a fire under his team's ass. And listen, I know Leaf fans are scared, man, because they don't want to see the same crap happening in the playoffs. Yeah. They don't want to see them get out to a 3-1 lead or a 3-1 series lead and blow that again. So that's a little bit of a concern. But again, we're in the middle of the season, and I think he's just trying to motivate his team.
Let me ask you though, Bruno, are the Toronto Maple Leafs soft?
So here's the thing, Lepore. This team has a reputation, whether you like it or not, whether you think they've changed over the last couple of years. And I think we're both in 100% agreement that this team, the last couple of years, has been really one of the best Leafs teams we've ever seen. I mean, I think it's fair to say that. I know they haven't done shit in the playoffs, but just looking at them from a regular season standpoint, looking at the numbers, looking at how good they've been defensively the last 2 seasons, this is a different team. But even if it is a different team, there's still that reputation that they're soft. You think about their best players. Matthews is not a physical guy. Mitch Marner, John Tavares, William Nylander, Morgan Riley. These are not dudes that are going to go into the corner and lay a massive hit. Now, I think they are hard on the puck and aggressive and physical in different ways. Like, for example, Matthews is so tenacious when he wants to get the puck back and he's down low and he's protecting it and he's making plays in tight spaces. Same with William Nylander, who I think is phenomenal at this. I don't think they get enough credit for how good they are in those tight spaces when
they always win the puck battles every time.
Exactly. When it just comes to pure, battles in the corners in front of the net and things like that. They win a lot of those battles, but like it or not, Lepore, this team still has that reputation hanging over its head that they're soft.
Yeah. Something that kind of scared me, when you kind of look in the mirror and you admit something. I was talking to a friend of mine about the Eastern Conference and how the playoffs are going to unfold, like a playoff bracket. And you look at it and you see, okay, whoever finishes 2-3 in the Atlantic is going to it's going to be an absolute war. And then even if you win the division, you're going to play whoever sneaks in, who at this point is going to be a really good team. And it's this crazy gauntlet of teams. Take your pick your poison of the team you want to play. And this is the truth. But then he asked, think about this question for a second and try to be honest with yourself about this question. There's not a team who we could play that wouldn't scare you at least a bit. Whether it was Boston because of the history, Tampa because they're a juggernaut, Florida because they're the best team in the league. If it ends up being like a 1 versus wildcard team, if you end up with like the Penguins or something or the Rangers, there's that little bit of fear. I would have a little bit of a fear as a Leafs fan playing one of those teams. Do you think if you asked, or I'll put it this way, would you be surprised if you asked a member of a fan base of one of those other teams who they wanted to play in the playoffs or who they wouldn't be afraid of in the playoffs, and they said the Leafs?
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Teams probably want to play the Leafs just based on their recent track record.
Yeah. Think of it from that other perspective. If you're Florida, would you rather play Tampa or the Leafs?
The Leafs all day long.
All day long. I think even Boston, like if you're Boston, would you rather play Florida or the Leafs?
Probably the Leafs.
Probably the Leafs. And then if you're a Pittsburgh or Washington or Rangers, as bad as it could have went flipping over to the other side, I'll take the Leafs. You know what I mean? Compared to all those other teams, you definitely don't want Tampa. And then again, Florida, the best team in the league. And I'm not saying every team would handpick the Leafs to play them first. I'm just saying, I think the perspective of the other team would be, this could have been a hell of a lot worse. Right?
I 100% agree with you.
To me, that's scary. And that's us being perfectly honest as the biggest Leafs fans in the world.
And I don't even think, I talked about sort of being soft from a physical perspective. It's also from a mental perspective. I think these other
more
teams,
the mental perspective, Bruno.
Exactly. I think these other teams view the Leafs still as a mentally soft team. And that's mostly because they can't get out of the first round to save their lives. With all the talent this team has, with Austin Matthews being, the best goal scorer in the world, whether you still want to have Ovechkin on top of the mountain in that case. I happen to think that Matthews is the best goal scorer in the world right now. When you have a player like that, and when you have a supporting cast, I mean, we call this a supporting cast, Mitch Marner, who's a superstar in his own right, William Nylander, John Tavares. How does this team not get out of the first round? You're looking at all these other teams, and of course they're going to look at the Leafs as a mentally soft team. It's not even that they think that they're going to overpower them and out-muscle them and out-physical the Leafs. It's that they think this team, between the ears, is not mentally tough enough. And in a playoff series, if they get out to a 3-1 series lead, 3-2 series lead, or if it goes to game 7, you're going to think that this Leaf team is not going to get the job done. And that's a team that you would rather play in the playoffs instead of one of these other battle-tested teams who have won playoff series, have won Stanley Cups. And until the Leafs get over the hump, they are going to be viewed, whether it's from a physical or mental perspective, as a soft hockey team, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's going to be all result based, and we're going to find out who this team is come playoff time. But I was actually going to make the point that you made about going down in a series. If you were down three, would you rather be down 3-1 to the Leafs or 3-1 to the Lightning? I mean,
Leafs
we know
all day.
Yeah, we know the answer to that. And even just from the other side of the team, how can you not at least have a little bit in the back of your mind that, kind of like how it was on the Amazon show, it's going to be tough for this Leafs team to close it out, because just mentally, like, it's a lot for them.
The pressure.
So yeah, not even in a full-on negative, they're weak way, or we're physically stronger than them way. Just to know, like, this team has the demons, as we're talked about on the Amazon documentary, like I said. So they're going to have to show us, man. And I know that's so easy to say, but it's completely result-based. And I'm always the first one in sports to say that don't judge something by way of the result, base it on the journey, like what happened from start to finish, not just how it finished. But in this case, because what we've dealt with recently and what we've seen from this team, and this being now these guys are men now. They're not kids anymore. We've seen enough. It's 100% result based. 100%. They will turn the switch if they can plow through one of these good teams. But if they don't, that reputation is going to keep, and it's going to be ugly in Leafs media, in Leafs land for fans, and maybe in the head offices at MLSE.
And it's a crazy situation, because you mentioned this, Lepore, just in terms of looking where Florida and the Lightning are right now in the standings. Mm-hmm. Right now, based on points percentage, you have Colorado number 1 in the league, Carolina number 2, Florida number 3, Tampa number 4, and the Leafs number 5. I mentioned this on the last show. You have 3 of the top 5 teams in the NHL playing in the same division. And there's a very, very good chance that 2 of those top 5 teams are going to be playing each other in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's insane. So the Leafs it's a terrible spot to be in. And even, it's like you said, Lepore, even if the Leafs win the division and they play, for example, Pittsburgh in the first round or something, no matter what, you're getting a beast of a first round matchup, but especially if you have to play one of those Florida teams. And, God forbid the Leafs lose again in the first round, whether it's to Florida or Tampa. I mean, what's even the conversation heading into next season?
Oh, yeah. I don't even want to go there, Bruno, but I'll ask you, so you have it in front of you. Where's Boston in points percentage?
Boston in points percentage. Let me see. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're 10th in the league right now.
They're 10th. Percentage. So it could even work out that, let's say how it is now, where you have the 2-3 playing each other. And then let's say Boston got the second wild card. So you could be in a situation where every team in the division is playing each other, and it's just a nightmare, a nightmare to get out of. And then it'll of course matter with the reseeding and how it goes. But I think I'll put it, this is the most shocking thing to me, and, open the discussions about the format. So it's very well a possibility that we're in the semifinals, the conference finals, and 3 of those 4 teams, it will happen. It could be a slam dunk that 3 of those 4 teams are out.
It's wild.
Wild. It's the reality of it, and you have to deal with it. And I'm not that guy that always says, and as much as I want the Leafs to win a round, I've never really saw it that way. To me, there's the winner and everybody else. So, okay, you got to play Tampa first. Well, you got to play them eventually. If they beat you in the first round, if the Leafs lose to Tampa, it's kind of, I'm going back on what I'm saying now. If the Leafs lose to Tampa, I'll be disappointed that they didn't win a round. I won't use the whole first round thing. I think where we make the mistake as hockey fans sometimes, or sports fans in general, we kind of look at the way things used to be, and it never leaves our mindset. So say you and I growing up, there was no cap, and the one played 8. So if you were this elite 100-point plus team and you played a 6, 7, 8 seed, that was a big upset. And fingers could be pointed like, wow, you really should have beat that team. And if you want to be called soft and this and that, you got beaten by a weaker team. With this format, no, number one, there's a cap. So the gap between the top teams and even the middle teams is like 0. And then
especially in the Eastern Conference, which
exactly.
is an absolute logjam of really good teams.
Exactly. So it's just it is what it is. And again, if they lose in the first round, I'll be very disappointed for them not winning a round. But I don't like the whole first round take because, teams have made it with weak draws and teams have gotten screwed with hard draws. So I think it's more about the performance, how I'll look at it. And you just throw those things out there. If the Leafs lose to the Tampa Bay Lightning in 7 games in overtime in game 7, what are you really going to say? They're not built properly. They lost by a shot. And I know
it's not even really a typical first round matchup. Like I gave the Leafs a pass.
That's exactly it.
When they lost to Boston in game 7 twice, when they, even this year, if they lose to Tampa in the first round, as brutal as that'll be, I would probably even give them a pass for that. Where I don't give them a pass is losing to Columbus in the qualifying round a couple of years ago. Losing to a bad Montreal team, blowing a 3-1 series lead. Those things are inexcusable. But now we're going back to a situation where it's like, holy shit, they got to play Tampa potentially in the first round, a healthy Tampa team. And that's the thing, right? A lot of it's going to come down to health as well. Which team is the healthiest come playoff time? Are the Leafs core 4 all going to be healthy? Is Morgan Rielly going to be healthy? Is Jack Campbell going to be healthy? You take one of those guys out of the lineup, that could drastically change the series. Same thing if you take one of the Tampa stars out of the lineup, even though they proved they could win a Stanley Cup without Steven Stamkos. So, yeah, I think that goes without saying. That's the last team you want to see in the playoffs. But Lepore, we will save that playoff talk for later down the road.
I'm sure it'll come up once or twice along the way, though.
It'll come up a couple of times.
Yeah.
But now it is time to turn our attention to the second game of the week. Leafs at the New York Islanders. And like I mentioned, Muzzin and Hall missed this game as well. The Islanders came into action, Lepore, 7-1-1 over their last 9 games. So an Islanders team that got off to a terrible start this season, finally starting to turn things around, starting to look like the Islanders from the last couple of seasons. And like I said, the Leafs jumped out to a 3-1 lead, and you're immediately thinking, oh my dear God, this is the worst lead. It's not the worst lead in hockey. It's the worst lead for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Exactly. Let's be specific.
So you're already starting to think that trouble is around the corner after Morgan Rielly makes it a 3-1 game. By the way, Morgan Rielly, 33 points in 38 games this season, playing over 24 minutes a night. That dude has been unreal, and he is earning every penny of that contract extension.
Mm-hmm.
Like that dude is, man, I'm a big Morgan Rielly guy, and I love the way he's playing. But the Leafs find a way to hang on 3-1. So Lepore, man, what'd you think of this Islanders game?
We kind of touched on it earlier. This was the game. This was the road game specifically as well that a coach would want to see. Kind of contrast to what the Rangers game was. They looked solid throughout the entire game. You were never really afraid about the result or panicking. The Islanders had a lot of chances in the third period, but I mean, they're behind. It's going to happen. So we'll run through the goal scorers quickly. Marner scored first for the Leafs about 6-7 minutes in, shorthanded actually. So we had that power play goal against the Rangers, scored a shorthanded one against the Islanders. Kind of funny one. I'm sure people who watched it laughed as Marner lost control of the puck and it slid underneath the goalie, but they all count. Then Zach Parise ties it at 1. Zach Parise, man, like that's always a player I enjoyed watching, and things haven't worked out very well for him in Long Island. It's only his second goal of the year, but Zach Parise, was a player I liked.
Oh yeah, in his Devils days, man.
Oh man,
he had like a 95-point season. He had scored 46 goals one year. That dude, man, at one point was like a borderline top 5 player in the world.
Yeah, I've always thought too. So 2010 Olympics, when Crosby scored in overtime, people do forget the Americans scored with 10 seconds left to tie it, and it was Parise. And one of those stories, the history of hockey, if USA wins in overtime, how much attention does that Parise goal get, and how much of a sort of American icon of hockey is Zach Parise for being the guy who tied the game against Canada with 10 seconds left in Vancouver. So it worked out for the best, but like I'm just,
it could have been for real.
It could have been.
That could have changed a lot of people's lives, man.
Yeah. And then the
Especially
underlying story of his dad was on the Summit Series Canadian team. Kind of weird tidbit that he was represented the States, but his dad was like on the most significant Canadian hockey team ever. But anyways, no problems though for the Leafs because Pierre Engvall comes through with 1 second left in the period. I thought a pretty good move, man, from Engvall.
That was sweet.
Forehand, backhand, opened up the goalie, slid it in. And Pierre Engvall, ready for this one, Bruno? In his last 14 games, has 4 goals and 10 points.
Let's go. The giraffe turning it on.
I'm
an Engvall guy, man. I've always been a fan of his, like I said.
Really?
6'5", he can skate, he can play in multiple situations. Let's go, man. Pierre Engvall. Give me more of that.
So big goal from him to finish off the period. So Leafs go up 2-1 into the second. And in the second, about midway through, Morgan Rielly, who you mentioned a few minutes ago, scored an absolute beauty. He took a great pass from Nylander. And I always say in hockey, there are certain plays that get a lot of attention that aren't that hard to really do. It just kind of looks cool. So everyone clicks on it or it gets highlighted of the night or whatever. But there's other plays that don't get very much attention. And this pass from Nylander, I thought was crazy. There's 2-3 sticks in the way, and he just slides it right over to Rielly, who blasts it home. He put it in the perfect spot in his back foot so he could get everything on it. Just what a pass. Speaking of plays that don't get enough attention, did you see the pass that Rasmus Dahlin made the other day on the power play?
I don't think I saw it.
Exactly. You didn't see it. Like no one saw. I came across it on Twitter like a couple days later. And again, maybe it's like a Sabres thing. They don't get the attention, as much attention as other teams. But the puck came around the net and he was playing the left point and he was creeping in on the left point. And he passed it to the other point, but he passed it to the other point by way of deflecting the puck between his legs to the other player. So like a D to D pass between his legs to the other player, and the player walked in and scored. And I thought, I'm like, why wasn't this everywhere? Like when I saw it, but
because it's Buffalo.
Yeah, it's Buffalo. Rasmus Dahlin, or maybe I think it was again. Who's it against? I forget who it was against, but they beat Philly the other night. Speaking of teams that are in a lot of trouble,
that team is a disaster.
Yeah. So Leafs go into the third period up 3-1, like we said, and they hold on. The Islanders had a lot of pressure, a lot of shots for that matter in this period. But Petr Mrazek, with his best game as a Maple Leaf by far, makes 28 saves. The Leafs only had 23 total shots. Or sorry, he had 27 saves. The Islanders had 28 shots. The Leafs had 23 shots. Money Puck had the Leafs winning this game 59.7% of the time.
Yeah, I think it was a solid bounce back effort from the Leafs coming off that terrible blown lead against the Rangers, losing 6-3, getting called out by your coach. You thought, you know what, this team could either turtle up and lose another game to close out this road trip, or they could show some fight and finish off the road trip with a really solid win against an opponent that is playing some really good hockey. Like I said, the Islanders came in action with 7 wins in their past 9 games, a team that was finding their rhythm from the last couple of seasons, and the Leafs found a way to get the job done on the road. They didn't play a fantastic game by any means, but they got it done, and it was good to see Petr Mrazek play a good game because Lepore, man, this dude has only played 5 games all season. Jack Campbell, who's been awesome this year, one of the leading candidates for the Vezina Trophy, along with Igor Shesterkin, who we saw earlier in the week.
Good.
But Jack Campbell, man, Lepore, over his last 11 games, going back to December 1st, the record's good. He's 7-2-2, but only a .901 save percentage and a 3.15 goals against. So Jack Campbell's been struggling recently, and it was really good to see Petr Mrazek finally have a good game because he's only played 5 games this year. His stats have not been good. In 5 games, an .899 save percentage, a goals against average of 3.03. The Leafs desperately need this guy to get going, especially making $3.8 million a season.
If I remember correctly, this was his first start where he was over 900.
I believe you're right.
Yeah, just not good. But Yeah, Mrazek's got to be a greater part of this team for multiple reasons. Number one, we don't want Campbell having to play every night because assuming he's the goalie for the playoffs, we want him to be well rested. And also, I think we have to find out what Mrazek is, both for this season and for next season. So, because as it stands now, if we can assume things are going to go the way they probably will, Campbell will be playing for another team next year, and Petr Mrazek will be the starting goalie for the Toronto Maple Leafs if he's healthy.
Wait, hold on a second. So you think Campbell's gone?
I don't think he's gone. Then you can't keep both of them. Like the Leafs can't have Mrazek at what he's making and Campbell at what he's going to demand. We can't pull that off cap wise. And even like logistically, you wouldn't want that. So then I take a step back and say, is it possible to trade Mrazek? If you can trade Mrazek, you can probably make it happen. But is that possible? Will a team take a shot on him? And maybe that's why this stretch is so important as well. Add it to the list. If he plays well over the last, there's 50 games left. I can't believe that 40, 50 games left. If he plays well during the second half of the season, maybe someone's interested. They'll take a flyer on him. He's only got 2 years.
Oilers, perhaps.
That's the one I've thought of, Bruno. Kenny Holland, Mrazek, the connection there. Try to figure something out there. But either way, he's got to play, whether it's for us or to show him off to someone else. This guy has to be found out with regard to what he is and what he can be relied on to do. And it would be heck, I'm all here for it. I'm here for a goalie controversy. If he wants to stand on his head and be great, and we all expect Campbell to have some negative regression. If he wants to be the man during the second half of the season, and we have two solid goalies, it's a good decision to have to make. It's a good problem to have, as they say. So I hope it happens. Mrazek hasn't convinced me yet, but again, as a fan, I can really, really hope that we get to that point. And again, to calm my nerves a little bit, if we can't pull off a deal with Campbell / trading Mrazek, at least we know that going forward, we have a legitimate starting goalie.
Yeah, it is beyond imperative for this team to get Petr Mrazek going. You nailed it, man. I'm looking at his game log. This game against the Islanders was the first of 5 games this season where he had a save percentage over 900.
There you go.
That's sad.
Not good.
But there's one thing that I know about Petr Mrazek. When this dude gets hot, he gets really hot. And there's moments where he's going to have tough stretches. I noticed playing on Carolina the last few seasons, like there's stretches where this dude is unbelievable. And then there's stretches where, like we saw, where he has a save percentage under 900. They need to get him going. For him to only play 5 games to this point, the Leafs have played 38 games this season. If you told me at the start of the season, after the Leafs signed Petr Mrazek to a 3-year contract worth $3.8 million a season, that through 38 games, he would only have 5 starts at this point, I would have told you were insane. Yeah. Or I would have said he probably got injured at some point, which he did because he's been injury prone in his career.
Yeah.
But they got to get him going, especially with Jack Campbell leaking a little bit recently. And again, we talked about this earlier in the season. Jack Campbell was not going to maintain a 940, a 935 save percentage. That's almost impossible nowadays over a full season, unless you have the season of your life. So with Jack Campbell struggling, and, the Leafs have had some time off here to recharge. I mean, first, you had COVID and the holiday break and more COVID stoppages. But now the Leafs last week, they only played a couple of games. This past week, only 2 games against the 2 New York teams. This week, they're only playing 2 games as well. So you have 4 games over a 2-week span. Hopefully it gives a chance to these goaltenders, to rest up a little bit, to refocus. And I would assume we're going to see Mrazek play one of the games this week. I mean, maybe he's going to play both. That remains to be seen. But they got to get this guy going, man. Because like you said, Lepore, if they can get him going and showcase him to some other teams, maybe they can unload that contract. Because if Campbell ends the season as a top 3 candidate for the Vezina Trophy, he's going to command a pretty sizable contract. Like, what do you think Campbell is going to be asking for in his next deal?
If he finishes as a Vezina candidate.
Yeah, so even if he doesn't win the Vezina, let's say like Shesterkin
really
wins the
matter.
Vezina, Campbell finishes like third in Vezina voting.
I'd be shocked if it was under like 6'5".
Really, eh?
At the end of the day, Bruno, and because I always say it takes one team. If you're Campbell now and you're his agent, why would you not test free agency? And if you do, it takes one team. We just talked about the Oilers. What would they not give Campbell? And when the Leafs won't be able to match it, it takes one team, and maybe he would take a discount to stay in Toronto if we can pull it off. But even then, I mean, it can't be under 6, Bruno. Like seeing what these goalies are getting. And if we look at like the timing of contracts, I mean, you hate to point to bad contracts, but like Matt Murray got 6+.
Good
point. coming. And that's more my point in the way that you had a team in Ottawa, and I'm not going to call them desperate, but they really wanted a starting goalie to help their rebuild. So they overpaid, and they probably even knew at the time they overpaid, but they just wanted that out of their minds. We have a starting goalie, and it didn't work out for them, but he got that money. And Campbell, and that's Murray coming off 2 average to below average seasons. If Campbell's coming off a Vezina Trophy nomination, man, there's gonna be someone stupid. It wouldn't even shock me if someone gave him something absolutely crazy. You look at these deals around the league for goalies, like Brizgalov, those deals like back in the day where like teams were desperate. But
even recent history, the Bobrovsky deal.
The Bobrovsky, yes, hashtag Russians. But yeah, teams that are desperate, who really want a goalie, who just want that calmness from it. And it's tricky because I'm the first one to say I don't think you should spend very much money on a goalie in today's NHL because the gap between an average goalie and elite goalie is not very much. So I'll pay for an elite goalie, but I won't pay double the price, if not more, for the elite goalie. But at the same time, I recognize the more emotional side of it for a GM and staff, just wanting that thought gone. We have a goalie. It's one position. We have a goalie who can win games. That's it. And if we sign him long-term, we sign him long-term. That's fine. And I understand that side of it. And it only takes one of those for Campbell. So I'd like to think he wants to sign in Toronto, but it's about money at the end of the day.
You would have thought Hyman would have liked to stay a Leaf. And
of
I think he did want to stay a Leaf.
Oh, 100% Hyman. If there was no cap, Hyman would be a Leaf.
Financially, the Leafs just couldn't make it work.
Yeah.
And I
what's your number,
Bruno?
With
what Hyman did. Like that was his last opportunity to cash in. He's a 29-year-old coming off a very nice stretch of whatever you want to call it, 3 or 4 seasons playing with the Leafs, and he cashed in. And I think Campbell's in a similar spot. You have a 30-year-old goalie who was a former first-round pick, who's been a journeyman up to this point in his career, and at the age of 29, 30 years old, finally establishes himself as one of the best goalies in the NHL. It's going to be his best opportunity of his entire life to cash in on what he's done over the last couple of seasons and sign a long-term contract. So looking at it from Campbell's perspective, he would be insane not to chase the money to a certain degree. If the Leafs are coming to him and saying, listen, Jack, we can only give you $5 million, $5.5 million. You're going to have to take a discount if you want to stay with this team, if you want to make it work. But if he's getting, like you mentioned, Lepore, 6.5, or someone even offers him 7 on like a 4-year deal or a 5-year deal. If I'm Jack Campbell, I'm 30 years old. I'm coming off the best 2 seasons of my life. I would highly consider just chasing that contract, even if it's with a team that's not very good. And again, we don't know where his motivation lies. We don't know what makes him tick. We don't know how badly he wants to stay with this organization. But man, oh man, that's going to be tough for him to turn down if there's a team that's desperate, that's offering him a long-term deal at a really big number. If I'm Jack Campbell, man, I think I would chase the money. I really do.
I'll ask you this question, Bruno, because like you asked me what I thought the number would be. I'll ask you, say for the Leafs, where do you envision it? Say the Leafs could dump Mrazek, where would you guess that number will be? And something not really talked about because everyone's so focused on the number is the term. Because at the end of the day, let's say he does finish the season the way it started and he's great and he's a Vezina candidate. It's still only really 1 year. So would you be okay giving him a 3-year deal, a 4-year deal, a 5-year deal?
I think the most I would probably give him is 5 years.
Okay.
I think when you go over 5 years, especially with a goaltender, and you said it, man, with how volatile the position is, and even just the difference between an elite goalie and let's say like the 13th best goalie in the league,
it's zero.
It's not a big gap whatsoever. Like we could say, okay, Andrei Vasilevsky, when he's at the top of his game, like he's an alien and he's probably the best goalie in the world.
Yeah, but even value-wise, he's not that bad. If you look at what he's making, he's not making 11 million or something like that.
And that's another thing, right? With how smart I think the Leafs are at managing the cap, and you can make fun of them all you want, but if you look at the math, this team manages the cap better than almost any team in the NHL. And I don't think they want to put themselves in a position with all the money that they're dishing out to their elite players right now, having to give Jack Campbell some crazy number. I just don't think they would do that. I don't think they would allocate that much of the salary cap to the goalie position. I don't think they're going to make that mistake.
So what's your number, Bruno? What number would you say if his agent put forward? You'd tell the Leafs sign it right now.
I would say I could see the Leafs going up to like 6 potentially.
Okay.
I don't think they're going over 7 million. I don't think they can afford to do that.
Okay. But then it comes into play.
With the Mrazek contract in play and Nick Ritchie and some of the other moves they can make to unload some of those guys. But
I was going to say, yeah.
But man, you're getting into a tough spot. If you're going to pay Jack Campbell, even if you pay him like what you're giving Morgan Riley on his contract extension, like how on earth can you possibly make that work?
Yeah, because you're forgetting too. It's like even if they dump Mrazek, well, then they have a backup in the lineup. And even if it's like, say, Wall on an entry or somebody else at $1 million, I mean, that's still money. And then you remove Mrazek, but then you get what Campbell's making now. So like numbers have to be crunched. Numbers really and truly have to be crunched to make it work. And that's why, like, if I had to guess, and it's not what I want Jack Campbell to sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs. If I had to guess, like you asked me before, if I thought it was a done deal, he was gone. I wouldn't bet on it happening because so much has to happen for it to work out. They have to be able to get rid of Mrazek. They may have to free up other monies. Maybe it's Ritchie or whomever, or maybe a deal they don't really want to get rid of. Plus the discussions of, is it worth giving this goalie whatever he's demanding? There's a lot of moving parts. So I'm not optimistic, to sum it up.
Yeah, then we're going to get into the situation where people start talking about unloading one of the core 4.
Oh, my God. Oh, Bruno,
like
why'd you
Marner's contract was unloaded or Nylander? Then we're going to get into all of that. So,
Bruno, you just totally scripted what's going to be the take next season. If Campbell walks, it's because Marner makes too much. That'll be the complaint for everyone. So thanks for sticking that in my mind, Anthony Bruno.
It's coming, Lepore.
It's coming.
Man. It's coming, man. Is there anything else about the Leafs you want to get off your chest?
Well, there's lots I'd like to get off my chest about my fandom to Toronto Maple Leafs, but we try to keep these podcasts around an hour. Happy to see them win the other night. Happy to see the style in which they won. They only have 2 games, I think, again this week. What is it? They have the Devils and Ducks, I believe.
Ducks and Red Wings. So the Ducks on Wednesday at home, and then in Detroit on Saturday night.
Okay, maybe it's like the next week they have the Devils twice or something. There's something in the schedule. But yeah, so fans still not in the building, which kind of sucks for that home game. But hopefully that'll change soon. It's hard, man. I'm trying my best not to, and I don't know about you or anyone listening out there. It sounds stupid talking about sports, but I'm trying my best not to be too hard on teams for not the best results. Because I just think it's such a weird season. You're not playing very often. You're either, it seems like every team in the league is either locked into the playoffs or locked out of the playoffs. So I'm more looking for just good performances. So you say, like, looking at your week ahead for the Leafs, these games, play well, do what you're supposed to do. You want the best players to be your best players. This team goes on a tailspin, I'll panic. I don't want to be taken the wrong way here, but I'm more focused on kind of just how they look to sum it all up rather than results. And I'd say that about any team, just because teams are dealing with a lot. There's still guys being out for COVID. There's breaks. Playing in an empty building is weird. So just get through it, play well. I say do what you're supposed to do. And by that, I don't mean get the results, just make it easy on the eye for all of us.
I think it's also just important to zoom out, because as crazy as the last couple of weeks have felt, and let's call it since the Leafs essentially returned to play after the COVID outbreak and the holiday break. So going back to January 1st, the Leafs are 5-2-1. So even though at moments it has felt like, oh my God, there was these crazy games against Colorado and Vegas and the Rangers and all these blown leads, they're 5-2-1 since January 1st. So it's like you said, Lepore, continue the momentum coming off of this Islanders game, tighten things up defensively. Hopefully these goaltenders can both get going, specifically Petr Mrazek, who's only played 5 games so far. Hopefully Jack Campbell can recharge a little bit, get his game back. I'm not expecting him to be the Jack Campbell we saw at the start of the season with his .940 save percentage, but make those big saves that he's been making throughout the season when the team needs it most. And I think just get your game to where you have to get it to come playoff time. If there's going to be a couple more bumps along the road, so be it. But please just get your shit together when it matters, when you're playing the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round of the playoffs.
That's what I was trying to say, but you said it way more eloquently than I attempted. I'll ask you this, Bruno, not to keep this going, but we'll wrap it up quick. If you had to choose between Mrazek finding his groove and being legit the rest of the season, or our favorite Maple Leaf, Nick Ritchie, finding his groove and starting to put up points, which one would you choose?
Petr Mrazek all day.
Really? Okay. I thought you were going to say Ritchie because at least we have Campbell. Okay.
No, Petr Mrazek all day, because God forbid it gets to a point where Jack Campbell gets injured or he's just not playing well and you have to throw Petr Mrazek into a playoff scenario. I'd be okay with that if Petr Mrazek is playing well. He has playoff experience. It's not like he's some young goaltender. Like, this dude's been around now. And I think it's going to get to a point, man. You can't just run Jack Campbell into the ground as good as he's been. And it would be so awesome for Petr Mrazek to find his game and start earning that $3.8 million contract. But saying all that, yes, it would be nice if Nick Ritchie just did anything at this point.
Yeah. You mentioned the takes that we'll have to listen to next year if we lose Campbell. To push it even further, if Mrazek is playing really poorly and the Leafs can't make a save to start next season and Campbell's wherever he will be, and we all know he'll be playing amazing because hashtag Toronto Maple Leafs. But yeah, maybe, you know what? I thought you were going to say Ritchie and I was going to go the direction of Ritchie, but I'm not convinced to switch very often. And I think you did it to me, Bruno. I'm like, yeah, let's get Mrazek in gear just to clear the stress off our brains for the next little while.
Yeah, if we can get a nice Petr Mrazek, maybe a shutout this week.
Ooh,
maybe a shutout this week to get things really going for him. That would be nice to see. But
this is the most Leafs fan thing ever. The guy wins one game, first game over 900. We're like, he's getting shutouts. This is going to be a goalie controversy. And why do people make fun of Leafs Nation again? Why?
Oh man, we're just asking for it, eh?
Exactly. Comment down below, everyone. Comment
Leaf
down
fans are
below.
just asking for it.
Yeah.
All right, man. That is gonna do it for episode 49 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Once again, if you're a new listener, not enough of you are doing this, and this would be a big time help. Please go to Apple and give us a 5-star rating and review. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you enjoyed this show, then we would appreciate it so much if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.